Lisa Morgan had never been so nervous in her entire life. She stood in the huge metal hallway of the space station, looking up at walls that stretched higher than any building on Earth. Strange lights moved along the ceiling, and the air tasted different here. It had a sharp, clean smell that made her nose tingle. The message had arrived at Earth 3 months ago. It came from something called the Galactic Council. Nobody on Earth even knew such a thing existed. The message was simple, but shocking. It said that humans had finally developed fast space travel, and now they were invited to join the galaxy's government. Lisa was chosen to represent all of humanity. She was a diplomat who had worked with different countries on Earth, but this was completely different. She would be talking to aliens from dozens of different worlds. Some of them had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Jake Sullivan watched from the human ship called the Liberty. He was a commander who had spent his life exploring space around Earth. When humans first built ships that could travel faster than light, Jake was one of the first to test them. He had seen amazing things in space, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The space station was bigger than any city on Earth. It floated in empty space between several star systems. Hundreds of different alien ships were docked around it. Some ships looked like giant crystals. Others were shaped like living creatures. A few glowed with their own light. Emma Davis sat next to Jake, studying her notes about the different alien races. She was a scientist who studied life forms, and she had learned everything she could about the species in the Galactic Council. The Zephyrians looked like giant squids with blue skin. The Vrakti were like huge insects that walked on their legs. The Chronari were covered in thick armor and had 4 arms, but there were dozens of other species too. Some breathed different gases instead of air. Others lived in super cold or super hot environments. A few were so strange that humans could barely understand how they lived at all. Lisa walked through the doors into the main council chamber. The room was enormous. It was shaped like a bowl, with seats arranged in circles going up the walls. In the center was a platform where speakers would stand. Strange music played softly, though it sounded more like wind and ocean waves than any human music. The alien delegates filled most of the seats. They were talking to each other in languages that made no sense to human ears. Some made clicking sounds, others whistled or hummed. A few seemed to communicate by changing colors on their skin. When Lisa entered, all the talking stopped. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to look at her. Some of those eyes were huge and black. Others glowed with their own light. A couple of species had so many eyes that Lisa could not count them all. She walked to the center platform, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Lisa had practiced this speech for weeks, but now her mind felt blank. She represented every human who had ever lived. 7 billion people on Earth were counting on her to make a good first impression. The keeper of records stood up from the highest seat. It was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to reflect light in strange ways. When it spoke, its voice came from speakers around the room, translated into human language. The species called human has achieved basic hyperspace travel, the keeper said. This qualifies them for consideration as council members. However, there are concerns about their nature and intentions. A delegate that looked like a walking tree raised one of its branch arms. The humans have developed space travel in only 50 years. Most species take hundreds or thousands of years to reach this level. This speed is unusual and concerning. Another alien, covered in what looked like blue fur, stood up. Our scouts report that humans have already begun exploring systems beyond their home world. They have built outposts and mining stations. Their expansion rate is very high. Carl Peterson listened to the broadcast from Earth. He was an admiral, in charge of Earth's space fleet, though it was tiny compared to what he was seeing at the council station. The human fleet had maybe 100 ships. Some of these alien races had thousands of ships, and their technology was far more advanced. But Carl had noticed something interesting in the reports from human exploration teams. Human ships were finding things that alien scouts had missed. Human miners were extracting materials more efficiently than expected. Human engineers kept improving their technology faster than anyone thought possible. Lisa finally found her voice. "Honored members of the council," she said, her words being translated into dozens of alien languages. Humanity comes seeking friendship and knowledge. We are new to space travel, and we have much to learn from your ancient civilizations. A delegate that looked like a giant crab clicked its claws together. Young species often say such things, but your actions show different intentions. You build military ships along with exploration vessels. You establish armed outposts in contested regions. These are not the actions of a peaceful species. Lisa felt her heart beating faster. She had expected questions about human intentions, but the hostility in the room was stronger than she had prepared for. These aliens were not just curious about humans, they were worried about them. Emma Davis studied the body language of the different species. Even though they looked completely different from humans, she could recognize signs of stress and fear. The Zephyrian delegate's tentacles were writhing in what her research said was a sign of anxiety. The Vrakti representative kept cleaning its antennae, which meant it was nervous. These powerful alien civilizations who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were afraid of humanity. But why? Humans had just learned to travel between stars. Their technology was primitive compared to these ancient races. Their fleet was tiny, and they controlled only a few systems around Earth. The Keeper of Records spoke again. The concern is not your current capabilities but your potential growth. In 50 years you have progressed from primitive rockets to hyperspace travel. Your population grows quickly. Your technology advances at unprecedented rates. If this continues, you could become a dominant force in the galaxy within a few centuries. Lisa realized that this was not really a welcome meeting. It was more like a job interview, and humanity was being tested to see if they were safe to have as neighbors. The decision made here would determine whether humans were accepted into galactic society or marked as a threat to be watched, and possibly controlled. She took a deep breath and prepared to give the most important speech in human history. 3 months had passed since Lisa Morgan spoke to the Galactic Council. The aliens had agreed to test humanity's abilities before making their final decision. They wanted to see how humans would perform in real situations, not just listen to speeches about peace and friendship. Ben Parker stood on the bridge of his warship, the UES Dakota. He was a captain with 20 years of experience fighting in Earth's wars. Now he found himself preparing for the strangest battle of his life. The Galactic Council had arranged war games between human forces and alien fleets. It was supposed to be a friendly test, but Ben knew the aliens were watching every move his people made. The test would take place in an empty star system with nothing but rocks and gas clouds. Human ships would fight against Chronari forces, the galaxy's most feared warriors. The Chronari had conquered dozens of worlds and had never lost a major battle. Their ships were bigger, their weapons more powerful, and their technology thousands of years more advanced than anything humans possessed. Amy Rodriguez sat in the tactical center of the Dakota, surrounded by screens showing enemy positions. She was a lieutenant colonel who had studied every battle the Chronari had ever fought. Their strategy was always the same. They formed perfect battle lines, used overwhelming firepower, and won through superior technology and discipline. But Amy had a different plan. Human military thinking was based on chaos and adaptation. Where other species tried to control every aspect of battle, humans thrived when everything went wrong. She had divided the human fleet into small groups that could act independently and change tactics at any moment. Rick Harrison piloted his fighter through the asteroid field, leading a squadron of 12 small attack craft. The Chronari fighters were twice as big and had better shields, but Rick had noticed something important in the practice sessions. Alien pilots flew in perfect formations and followed predetermined patterns. They seemed unable to adapt when something unexpected happened. The battle began when the Chronari fleet emerged from hyperspace in their traditional diamond formation. Their ships were beautiful and terrifying, covered in golden armor that gleamed in the starlight. Energy weapons charged with power that could destroy a city with one shot. Peter Collins watched from the human command ship as the enemy approached. He was the chief engineer who had designed humanity's new weapon systems. While other species had relied on the same technology for centuries, Peter had been improving human designs every day. His fusion reactors were smaller but more efficient than anything the aliens used. The Chronari commander broadcast his challenge in perfect, formal language. Human vessels prepare for honorable combat. We shall test your worthiness according to ancient traditions. May the stronger species prove victorious. Ben Parker replied with a simple message. Let's dance. The first exchange of fire lit up space like a miniature star. Chronari plasma beams struck human ships with incredible force, but the humans scattered before the shots could find their targets. Instead of trying to match the aliens' firepower, human ships darted between asteroids like insects, avoiding a swatting hand. Linda Foster commanded the human support vessels from a safe distance behind the battle lines. She was a general who specialized in logistics and supply, but she was learning that human warfare was different from anything taught in military schools. While the Chronari expected orderly combat, humans turned the battlefield into organized chaos. The alien fleet tried to maintain their formation while chasing scattered human ships through the asteroid field, but every time they lined up for a perfect shot, the humans had already moved somewhere else. Rick Harrison's fighters struck from unexpected angles, hitting weak spots that the Chronari had never thought to protect. Amy Rodriguez coordinated the attack from her command center, but she was not giving detailed orders. Instead, she let each human captain make their own decisions based on what they saw. This flexibility confused the Chronari computers, which had been programmed to predict enemy behavior based on logical patterns. The turning point came when Peter Collins activated his secret weapon. Human ships suddenly moved faster than before, powered by experimental engines that boosted their speed beyond what the aliens thought possible. The Chronari found themselves fighting enemies who could appear and disappear almost instantly. One by one, Chronari ships found their shields failing under attacks from directions they had not expected. Human weapons were weaker individually, but they struck in coordinated swarms that overwhelmed enemy defenses. The Golden Warriors who had conquered worlds found themselves being defeated by creatures they considered primitives. The final phase of the battle shocked everyone watching. Instead of trying to destroy all the Chronari ships, the humans began capturing them. Small human vessels attached themselves to disabled alien craft like parasites, taking control of their systems and turning their weapons against their former allies. When the simulation ended, the Chronari fleet had been completely defeated. Not a single human ship had been destroyed, while the proud alien warriors had lost half their force and had the rest captured or disabled. The victory was so complete that the alien observers could barely believe what they had witnessed. Ben Parker received congratulations from his crew, but he noticed something troubling in the alien communications. The Galactic Council representatives were not impressed by human skill. They were terrified by it. The test had been designed to show human limitations, not to demonstrate that they could defeat the galaxy's strongest military force. Amy Rodriguez analyzed the battle data and realized the same thing. The aliens had expected humans to lose honorably, proving that they were not a threat to galactic peace. Instead, humans had shown that they could adapt, innovate, and win against impossible odds. This was exactly what the alien powers feared. Most Rick Harrison landed his fighter and climbed out to find alien observers studying his ship with worried expressions. They were measuring his weapons, analyzing his flight patterns, and trying to understand how such primitive technology had defeated their champions. The war games had achieved the opposite of what the Galactic Council wanted. Instead of proving that humanity was harmless, the tests had demonstrated that humans were potentially the most dangerous species in the galaxy. News of the Chronari defeat spread through alien space faster than light, carrying with it a simple, terrifying message. The humans were not just another primitive species seeking membership in galactic civilization. They were something new and unpredictable, capable of changing the balance of power that had existed for thousands of years. The established order was no longer safe. Victor Kane sat in his office on the council station, watching news reports from across the galaxy. He was Earth's diplomatic representative, and the messages he was receiving made his stomach feel sick. Every major alien news network was talking about the human victory over the Chronari. Some called it lucky, others called it terrifying. The war games had ended 2 weeks ago, but the effects were spreading through galactic society like a disease. Species that had never shown interest in human affairs were now demanding information about Earth's military capabilities. Alien governments were holding emergency meetings behind closed doors. The ethereal conclave had called Victor to a private meeting. These beings were made of pure energy and had guided galactic civilization for longer than most species could remember. They rarely spoke to anyone directly, which made their request both an honor and a warning. Victor walked through corridors filled with floating lights that pulsed with different colors. The ethereals communicated through light patterns, and their message chamber looked like the inside of a rainbow. When he entered, a voice spoke directly into his mind without using his ears. "Human representative," the voice said, feeling ancient and tired. "Your species has created disturbance in the cosmic order. We have maintained peace for 10,000 years through careful balance. Your arrival threatens this stability." Victor tried to stay calm, though talking to beings of pure energy made him nervous. "The ethereals are wise and powerful. Surely humans pose no threat to your ancient civilization. We are still learning about the galaxy." The lights around him pulsed, with what felt like sadness. "You do not understand. We have seen species like yours before. They appear suddenly, grow quickly, and change everything they touch. The last time this happened, entire civilizations were destroyed in wars that lasted centuries." Meanwhile, Nicole, Webb was exploring a star system 200 light-years from Earth. She commanded the exploration ship UES Voyager, and her job was to find new worlds suitable for human colonies. In 6 months, her team had discovered 17 planets that could support human life. This was more than most alien species found in decades of searching. Nicole did not know that her success was causing panic among alien governments. The Stellar Compact, a group of trading worlds, was meeting an emergency session to discuss the human expansion rate. Their leaders were looking at maps showing human exploration routes and seeing something that frightened them. Kevin Ross was working on an archaeological dig on a dead planet called Xerion Prime. He was humanity's first xenoarchaeologist studying the remains of ancient alien civilizations. What he found in the ruins made him call Earth immediately with an urgent message. The planet had once been home to a species called the Vorthon Empire. They had been powerful explorers who spread across the galaxy quickly, just like humans were doing now. But the ruins told a dark story. The Vorthons had been destroyed completely, their worlds burned and their people wiped out by an alliance of older species. Kevin found records carved in stone that described the final war. The Vorthons had been accused of being too aggressive, too adaptable, and too dangerous to coexist with established civilizations. A coalition of 12 major powers had united to eliminate them entirely. The war had lasted 50 years and ended with the complete extinction of the Vorthon race. Susan Martinez received Kevin's report at Earth's military headquarters. She was an admiral responsible for defending human space, and the historical information made her realize that humanity might be facing the same fate as the Vorthons. The patterns were identical: rapid expansion, technological innovation, and fear from established powers. Susan began reviewing intelligence reports from human agents throughout the galaxy. What she found confirmed her worst fears. The same 12 species that had destroyed the Vorthons were now holding secret meetings about the human problem. Communication intercepts showed that they were calling humans a Category 5 threat, the highest danger level in galactic classification. Tony Mitchell was unaware of these political developments as he conducted trade negotiations on the industrial world of Factoria 7. He was a merchant captain who had been building economic relationships between human companies and alien businesses. His success was remarkable. Human goods were becoming popular throughout known space. Human tools lasted longer than alien equivalents. Human food was considered exotic and delicious by many species. Human entertainment, especially movies and music, was spreading to worlds that had never heard of Earth. Even human fashion was influencing alien clothing styles. But this economic success was creating another problem. Traditional alien trading cartels were losing business to human merchants. Economic advisors on dozens of worlds were reporting that human trade practices were more efficient and less expensive than existing systems. Entire industries were being disrupted by human innovation. Back on the council station, Victor Kane was meeting with representatives from the Crystal Federation. These beings looked like living gemstones and controlled the galaxy's largest banking systems. Their leader, a massive diamond creature, spoke in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. Human economic practices violate established trade protocols, the crystal being said. Your species offers goods at prices that undercut standard galactic rates. Your merchants form partnerships that bypass traditional commercial channels. This behavior destabilizes markets that have operated successfully for millennia. Victor tried to explain that humans were simply trying to find their place in galactic commerce, but the Crystal Federation was not interested in explanations. They wanted guarantees that human trade would conform to existing systems, which would effectively eliminate the advantages that made human merchants successful. Similar complaints were coming from other sources. The Void hierarchy accused humans of exploring too aggressively and claiming systems too quickly. The Telepathic Union said that human mental patterns were impossible to read and therefore untrustworthy. The Machine Collective complained that human technology was too unpredictable and violated standard engineering principles. Helen Clark was Earth's intelligence coordinator, and she was piecing together reports from agents throughout the galaxy. The picture she was building showed a conspiracy forming against humanity. Species that had been enemies for centuries were suddenly cooperating when it came to the human question. Secret meetings were being held in neutral space. Military alliances were being formed between traditional rivals. Economic sanctions were being planned to isolate human trade. Most disturbing of all, several species were conducting joint military exercises near human space, practicing formations that could only be used for invasion. The galaxy's established powers had reached a consensus. Humanity was growing too fast, innovating too quickly, and changing too many things. Like the Vorthans before them, humans were being classified as a species too dangerous to be allowed to continue their expansion. Victor Kane received the final ultimatum during a formal council session. The Keeper of Records stood before the assembled delegates and delivered a message that would determine humanity's future in the galaxy. The species designated human has been evaluated according to galactic stability protocols, the Keeper announced. Their expansion rate, technological development, and cultural influence exceed acceptable parameters. They are hereby classified as a potential existential threat to galactic civilization. The chamber filled with alien voices expressing agreement. Species that had never cooperated before were united in their fear of humanity. Victor realized that the war games had been a trap. The aliens had never intended to welcome humans into their society. They had been gathering evidence to justify treating humanity as an enemy. The terror in the Galactic Council was no longer hidden. It was official policy. Helen Clark sat in the secret communication room aboard the UES Interceptor, her face pale as she read the decoded messages. The intelligence officer had spent weeks breaking alien encryption codes, and what she discovered made her hands shake. 12 major galactic powers had formed something called the Stability Pact, and their goal was simple: stop human expansion by any means necessary. The meeting had taken place in the void between star systems, where no government claimed territory. Helen's spy satellites had recorded alien warships gathering in numbers never seen before. The Crystal Federation brought their diamond battleships. The Stellar Compact deployed their trade war fleets. Even the mysterious Shadow Collective had sent ships from the dark regions of space. Steve Adams commanded the Frontier Outpost on New Montana, humanity's furthest colony from Earth. He was a colonel who had fought in Earth's last wars before humans reached the stars. Now he found himself watching his sensors as hundreds of alien ships took positions around human space. They were not attacking yet, but they were making sure no human ship could leave or enter without their permission. The blockade was subtle but effective. Alien customs ships began stopping every human vessel, conducting searches that took days instead of hours. Human merchants found their cargo mysteriously delayed or rejected for minor paperwork problems. Human explorers were told that the systems they wanted to visit were suddenly restricted or dangerous. Rachel Wells worked in Earth's Intelligence Center, analyzing data from across the galaxy. She was a computer expert who specialized in alien communication systems, and her translations of intercepted messages painted a terrifying picture. The Galactic Council had classified humanity as a Category 5 expansionist threat, the same designation they had given to extinct species. The aliens were not just worried about human military power, they were afraid of everything humans did. Human art was influencing alien culture. Human science was making their technology seem outdated. Human philosophy was changing how younger alien generations thought about their place in the universe. Even human jokes were becoming popular on alien worlds. Alan Brooks piloted his reconnaissance ship through the outer regions of human space, carefully avoiding alien patrol fleets. He was a captain whose job was to gather intelligence about enemy movements, and what he saw made him realize the true scope of the threat facing humanity. Over 300 alien worlds had agreed to participate in the economic and military pressure campaign. The aliens had learned from their war games with humanity. They were not planning direct military confrontation, which had failed against human adaptability. Instead, they were using their superior numbers and established relationships to isolate humanity completely. No alien world would trade with humans. No alien government would recognize human territorial claims. No alien species would share technology or scientific knowledge. Grace Turner commanded Earth's combined military forces from her headquarters on Luna Base. She was an admiral who had risen through the ranks during humanity's expansion into space, and she understood that her small fleet could not fight the entire galaxy. Humanity had maybe 200 warships. The alien alliance had tens of thousands. But Grace had been studying human military history, and she knew that humans had won impossible battles before. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans had held off a massive Persian army. During World War II, small groups of resistance fighters had defeated much larger occupation forces. The key was not matching the enemy's strength, but making the cost of victory too high to bear. Janet Walsh addressed the United Earth government from the Capitol building in Geneva. She was the president who had to make the hardest decision in human history. The alien ultimatum had arrived through official diplomatic channels, demanding that humanity accept permanent restrictions on their growth and development. The terms were harsh but clear. Humans would be allowed to keep their current colonies, but could not establish new ones. Human technology would be limited to current levels with no further innovation permitted. Human population would be controlled through alien oversight. Human culture would be monitored to prevent further influence on galactic society. In exchange for accepting these restrictions, humanity would be granted observer status in the Galactic Council. They could watch alien politics but could not vote or influence decisions. They would become a protected species like animals in a zoo, safe but never free. The alternative was total war against an alliance that controlled 90% of known space. Every major government, every significant military force, and every important economic system in the galaxy had agreed to oppose human expansion. Humanity would face complete isolation, economic collapse, and eventual military defeat. President Walsh knew that most humans would rather fight than accept permanent subjugation. The same spirit that had driven humanity to explore dangerous oceans, climb impossible mountains, and reach for distant stars, would not accept a cage, no matter how comfortable it might be. Matt Torres was exploring the outer rim of known space when his long-range sensors detected something impossible. He commanded the deep space vessel US Pioneer, and his mission was to map unexplored star systems. What he found on the dead world of Zarian 7 would change everything humanity thought they knew about the galaxy. The planet was covered in ruins that were older than any civilization the Galactic Council claimed to know about. The architecture was massive and beautiful, built by beings who had possessed technology that made current galactic science look primitive. But most important were the symbols carved into every building and monument. Matt's archaeological team worked quickly to translate the ancient writing. What they discovered was a historical record of the galaxy's true past, hidden from current civilization for 50,000 years. The beings who had built these monuments called themselves the Primarchs, and they had once ruled every star system that now belonged to the Galactic Council. The records told an incredible story. The Primarchs had not been conquered or destroyed by war or disaster. They had evolved beyond physical existence, becoming beings of pure energy and consciousness. Before leaving the material universe, they had established safeguards to prevent any species from repeating the mistakes that had nearly destroyed the galaxy in ancient times. The current Galactic Council existed only because the Primarchs allowed. The ancient rulers had remained hidden, watching and waiting for the right species to inherit their legacy. Every major decision in galactic politics had been subtly influenced by Primarch guardians, maintaining a balance that prevented any one species from gaining too much power. But the most shocking discovery was in the final chamber of the ruins. Matt's team found genetic analysis equipment that was still functioning after millennia of abandonment. When they tested samples of human DNA, the ancient machines activated with recognition signals that had not been used for 50,000 years. Humanity carried Primarch genetic markers. The rapid technological development, the adaptive intelligence, the innovative thinking that terrified the galactic community was not random evolution. Humans were the designated inheritors of the galaxy's true power, awakening to their birthright. After eons of dormancy on a small blue world at the edge of known space, Matt Torres sent his discovery to Earth using quantum communication systems that bypassed all alien monitoring. The message that reached President Walsh and Admiral Turner contained information that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The aliens who thought they were containing a dangerous new species had actually been challenging the legitimate heirs to galactic civilization. The terror in the Galactic Council was about to become something much worse than fear. It was about to become the realization that they had made the greatest mistake in their species' histories. Julie Anderson stood in the main chamber of the ancient Primarch complex on Zerion 7, her heart racing as she watched impossible technology come to life around her. She was the lead archaeologist studying the ruins, and everything she had learned about galactic history was being proven wrong. The machines that had been silent for 50,000 years were now humming with power, responding to the presence of humans. Derek Wilson commanded the security team protecting the archaeological site. He was a captain who had expected to guard scientists digging through old rocks, but instead found himself watching technology that seemed like magic. Ancient weapon systems were activating throughout the complex, recognizing human DNA signatures and accepting them as legitimate command authority. The discovery spread through human space faster than light itself. Chris Powell received the full data transmission at Earth's military headquarters and realized that everything had changed. He was an admiral who had been preparing for humanity's last stand against the Galactic Alliance, but now he understood that humans were not rebels fighting against cosmic order. They were the rightful rulers returning home. The genetic evidence was undeniable. Human DNA contained dormant sequences that matched the Primarch genetic template perfectly. Every human carried the biological codes that had once commanded an empire spanning millions of star systems. The rapid technological advancement that terrified alien civilizations was not unusual development. It was awakening inherited abilities. Martha Collins ran test after test in her laboratory aboard the research vessel UES Darwin, confirming what seemed impossible to believe. She was a geneticist who specialized in alien biology, and her analysis proved that humans were not just similar to the ancient Primarchs. They were direct descendants, modified and hidden on Earth until the galaxy was ready for their return. The implications hit the scientific community like an earthquake. Human innovation was not lucky accident or unusual evolution. It was genetic memory surfacing from ancestors who had built civilization throughout the galaxy. Human adaptability came from beings who had successfully ruled thousands of different worlds with countless alien species. Frank Turner coordinated the activation of ancient defense systems from his command post on Luna Base. He was a general who had spent his career managing human military technology, but now he was learning to operate weapons that could destroy entire star fleets with single shots. Primarch battle stations throughout the galaxy were recognizing human command codes, and coming online after millennia of dormancy. The Galactic Council's worst fears were becoming reality, but in ways they had never imagined. They had thought humans were dangerous because of their military potential. They had not realized that humanity represented the return of the galaxy's original masters, awakening to reclaim their inheritance. Diane Kelly broadcast the truth to the Galactic community from the restored Primarch Command Center. She was a captain who had been chosen to deliver humanity's final message to the species that had tried to contain them. The transmission reached every alien world simultaneously, carried by communication networks that the current galactic powers had thought they controlled. The message was simple, but devastating. The Galactic Council had never been the legitimate government of known space. They were caretakers allowed to exist only because the true rulers had chosen to remain hidden. The Primarchs had left the galaxy in the hands of younger species while humanity developed on Earth, waiting for the right time to return. Ancient guardian systems throughout space began responding to human presence. Automated defense platforms that had protected important star systems for thousands of years suddenly acknowledged human authority. Alien governments discovered that their most secure installations were no longer under their control. The Crystal Federation's banking networks crashed when Primarch financial systems activated and reclaimed control of galactic economics. The Stellar Compact's trade routes were disrupted as ancient navigation beacons began directing traffic according to human priorities. The Void Hierarchy's military bases found their weapons powered down by override codes they could not understand. The Council Station. Victor Kane watched alien delegates panic as their technology stopped obeying their commands. Emergency meetings were called, but the communication systems that had connected the galactic government for millennia were now responding to human operators. The carefully maintained balance of power that had existed for 10,000 years collapsed in a matter of hours. The ethereal conclave, beings of pure energy who had guided galactic civilization since ancient times, revealed their true nature. They were not alien entities. They were evolved Primarchs who had remained to watch over the galaxy until humanity was ready to assume their rightful place. Their voices spoke in the minds of every conscious being in known space. The time of hiding is over, the ethereals announced. The children of Earth carry the blood and wisdom of those who built this civilization. They are not invaders or threats. They are coming home. Species that had formed alliances against humanity found their fleets paralyzed by their own ships. Primarch technology embedded in every advanced system in the galaxy recognized the genetic markers carried by human DNA. Weapons would not fire on human targets. Shields would not activate against human attacks. Navigation computers would not plot courses that threatened human interests. The terror in the Galactic Council reached absolute levels as the truth became undeniable. Every major alien civilization had built their technology using Primarch foundations. Every important world was protected by Primarch defense systems. Every crucial system in galactic society operated under Primarch protocols that now recognized humans as the legitimate heirs. Admiral Grace Turner coordinated humanity's response. From Earth, as ancient star maps revealed the true extent of Primarch territory, the galaxy was not divided among dozens of independent species. It was a single empire that had been maintained by automated systems for 50,000 years, waiting for the return of its rightful rulers. President Janet Walsh addressed the galaxy from the Primarch throne world, a planet that had been hidden from alien detection for millennia. The chamber where she spoke had once hosted meetings of beings who had ruled 1 trillion stars. Now it would be the center of government as humanity reclaimed its inheritance. The human fleet that had seemed so small compared to alien armadas suddenly had access to weapons and ships that had been stored in hidden bases throughout space. Primarch technology that made current galactic science appear primitive was now at humanity's disposal. The species that had tried to contain human expansion discovered that they had been living in a small corner of humanity's ancestral domain. The blockade around human space dissolved as alien commanders realized their ships were surrounded by automated defense systems that had been invisible until humans activated them. The economic sanctions became meaningless when humans gained access to Primarch manufacturing facilities that could produce anything they needed. Most alien species submitted immediately, recognizing that resistance was impossible when humanity controlled the fundamental systems that made galactic civilization function. A few tried to fight, but their weapons were useless against shields that had been designed by the galaxy's original masters. The cosmic order that had existed for 10,000 years was swept away in days. The Galactic Council disbanded as member species acknowledged human authority over their worlds. Trade routes, military alliances, and political agreements that had taken centuries to negotiate became worthless when the galaxy's true owners returned. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through war or diplomacy. They had simply awakened to discover that it had always been theirs. The terror that had driven alien civilizations to unite against human expansion was replaced by the realization that they had been fighting against the very beings who had created their entire way of life. The children of Earth were home at last, and the galaxy would never be the same.